Hello and welcome to my presentation. My name is Martin Kier and today I'm going to talk about our empirical evaluation of MakerDAO's resilience. As MakerDAO is a stablecoin project, I quickly want to talk about stablecoins itself. Stablecoins are tokens that aim to be stable in price and can thus be compared to the blockchain equivalent of fiat currencies. It has to be mentioned, though, that this comparison is very limited, as fiat currencies have completely different properties and are also regulated. However, both stablecoins as well as fiat currencies have one common goal, and that is price stability. Many approaches towards keeping the price stable and keeping supply and demand of stablecoins in balance exist. Within the last years, many projects with different solutions to solve this problem emerged. Our analysis focuses on MakerDAO, as it is one of the largest and oldest stablecoin projects, which focuses on maximum decentralization. This includes that its core processes are almost completely managed on-chain. Furthermore, as the name suggests, Maker is organized as a decentralized autonomous organization, or DAO. That's why also Maker's governance is organized via its on-chain voting contracts using its own MKR token, which was distributed among early supporters and developers of the protocol. Maker's stablecoin is named DAI and is soft-pegged to the US dollar and secured by over-collateralized loans that are issued by Maker's on-chain contracts. Allowed collateral types can be decided by Maker governance and include Ether, USDC, or wrapped Bitcoin. To give you a better understanding of how Maker's over-collateralized loans work, I want to show you how Maker looks like from the perspective of a user that wants to borrow DAI against collateral. This screenshot shows Maker's Oasis Borrow portal, an open and free-to-use service that interacts directly with Maker's smart contracts. Of course, you could also use other tools or interact directly with Maker's contracts. However, this interface is made so that also users that can't use command line tools can interact with Maker's contracts. So, what can we see here? We can see that this is vault number 24487, which is an ETH-A vault. A vault in the Maker ecosystem is comparable to an account that exists for each Ethereum address and collateral type. A vault can be used by the user to add collateral, lock it, and lend DAI against this collateral. The locked collateral acts then as a security for the user's loan. In this case, we have the collateral type ETH-A. Maker also maintains other vault types that also accept Ether, which are named ETH-B and ETH-C. The difference between all these asset types are parameters like the required collateralization ratio, which I will explain in a minute. We can see that the user logged 2 Ether as collateral, which is shown here, and we can also see that the value of these 2 Ether is currently 294.47 USD. Furthermore, we can see the current value of 1 Ether, which is shown here, 147.24 USD. The screenshot is a little bit older, that's why the value is so low. And we can also see that the user has lent out 100 DAI, which is shown here. The current collateralization ratio is shown here. And this ratio is the value of the Ether that are currently locked, which are the 294.47 USD, divided by the 100 DAI. Finally, this screenshot also gives us 2 more important pieces of information. First, we see the minimum ratio, also known as liquidation ratio, shown here. This ratio is set by Maker governance and is defined for each collateral type. For ETH-A vaults, this ratio is set to 150%. If a vault falls below this ratio, the locked collateral is automatically auctioned off via another on-chain mechanism. Bidders can bid with increasing amounts of DAI for the collateral under auction, and the highest bidder receives the collateral after the auction. The DAI that has been collected from the auction gets then burned, so that all circulating DAI is always backed by enough collateral. A second parameter, called the stability fee, is also important. This is the yearly fee that needs to be paid by the vault owner for using a Maker loan. In this case it's 4%, which would mean that the owner of the vault would need to pay back 104 DAI after leaving the loan of 100 DAI in this vault for 1 year. This graphic provides a very simplified view of the just described mechanisms. On the left, we see Maker's off-chain Oracle infrastructure, shown here. The off-chain Oracle infrastructure is responsible to provide information about current prices of different asset types on a regular basis. Maker maintains a set of trusted feeds that consist of private as well as organizational partners like other DAOs, and the reason why Maker makes use of a set of feeds has to do with security considerations regarding the stability of the Oracle infrastructure. Collateral prices get submitted via a relay network to Maker's median contract, shown here. As the name suggests, the median contract chooses the median of several submitted values and then sends it further to the Oracle Security Module contract, or short OSM. This contract delays the new price for 1 hour to give vault owners the chance to react if necessary. This means they can pay back outstanding DAI debt or add additional collateral to their vault, so that the collateralization ratio rises to a level above the liquidation ratio. After 1 hour, the system can use the updated price, and external actors, called keepers, which are shown here, are able to liquidate a vault in case it has fallen below the liquidation ratio. In this case, the collateral is then taken from the CAT contract and moved to the Flipper contract, which manages the auction and sells as much collateral as needed to cover the outstanding debt of the user. In case auction participants bid high enough prices for the collateral, any exceeding collateral, which is not needed to cover a vault owner's debt, goes back to the vault owner after the auction. Even if MakerDAO is one of the largest issuers of stablecoins worldwide, not much empirical research which analyzes the protocol exists. Especially one of Maker's core mechanics, the liquidation process, has not been evaluated from an empirical standpoint. We therefore decided to investigate this part of the protocol in the first year of the full protocol implementation. We limited our analysis to ETH-A vaults, which were by far the largest vaults in terms of value of locked collateral and loans. For the data collection, we used our own open Ethereum node, and the data that was required to analyze Maker's processes came from a set of event logs that have been added to the protocol. For our analysis, we first investigated Maker's most important contracts to understand the core mechanics behind the protocol. From this knowledge, we then defined a set of criteria which need to be fulfilled to allow a stable operation of Maker. To assess if our criteria can be met, we derived several metrics which we measured by analyzing our data. This slide shows the criteria that we extracted after analyzing Maker's contracts. The most important ones are criteria 1 and 2. The first one describes that Maker's collateral auctions can achieve high enough prices to cover outstanding debt, which has been lent out by a vault owner in the first place. This criteria is necessary to guarantee that the DAI is always backed by enough collateral and has therefore a value that is justifiable. The second criteria means that the time delay between the moment when a vault can be liquidated, which is the moment when the 1 hour delay of the OSM contract runs out, until the time a keeper liquidates the vault is relatively low. This means, in this context, that the time delay should not add another layer of delay to the liquidation process, as steeply falling collateral prices can lead to the fact that collateral assets can't pay back their loans and leave a debt to the protocol. To get an understanding about our collected data, we began with an analysis about some core metrics. This slide shows the aggregated liquidations per week within our study period. As the diagram highlights, the number of liquidations fluctuates. The chart illustrates that 1 week in March 2020 had much more liquidations than any other week within the study period. In this week, an event commonly known as Black Thursday took place. On this day, several asset classes like stocks and bonds, but also crypto assets, had to go through dramatic price declines caused by fear about the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, the Ether price declined by almost 50% within hours, which had a dramatic effect on the Maker protocol. This slide provides more data about the Black Thursday incident, which took place on March 12th, but also had effects on the Maker protocol in the morning hours of March 13th. The diagram shows the aggregated hourly liquidations in blue, and furthermore the development of the Ether price in red. As the diagram highlights, liquidations take place especially after the price falls deeply. It has to be mentioned that overall a large set of liquidations itself is not a problem for the protocol, but it creates stress as many auctions run at the same time and also need to be successful so that the DAI overall stays over-collateralized. Within the next slides, we will provide a brief overview of some of our metrics and discuss what they can tell us about the protocol. The auction effectiveness measures how effective Maker's collateral auctions were when compared to Ether prices at the time of the auction. An effectiveness of 100% would mean that an auction achieved exactly the market price of Ether at the time of the auction. It needs to be considered, though, that this would not be effective for bidders, as costs like exchange fees or gas fees also need to be paid. An effectiveness of 95 to 97% would thus already be a success. For our analysis, we calculated the effectiveness of each auction within the study period and found that Maker's auction mechanism worked well on most days except the 2 days where the Black Thursday incident took place. We decided to use a box plot to show how widely the effectiveness of the auctions varies and found a median value of just 76% and an interquartile range of more than 90%. When we just look at the auctions that did not end during the Black Thursday period, however, we find the median auction effectiveness at a very satisfying value of 97%. Also, the interquartile range is just a couple of percentage, and a few outliers, which achieved an auction effectiveness of 60 to approximately 85%, are not really a problem, considering that Maker charges anyway a 13% penalty on top of all debts. Overall, this diagram highlights that auctions did not fulfill our criteria during the Black Thursday event, but also that Maker's collateral auctions are able to achieve adequate prices during less volatile times. This table shows the liquidation delay, which is the time from the moment when a vault can technically be liquidated until a liquidation takes place. A liquidation is technically possible for every vault that falls below the required liquidation ratio just after the price update passes the OSM contract. We measured the time in minutes and blocks and calculated the median, average, and maximum liquidation delay of all liquidations. As the table highlights, the median liquidation delay is relatively low during the time before and after Black Thursday. A value of just 2.0 minutes, which are 12 seconds or 1 block, is a satisfying value compared to the median liquidation delay of more than 2.5 minutes or 14 blocks on Black Thursday. The average values, which are much higher than the median values, already highlight that during some times, probably when the chain is more congested, the liquidation delay is much higher. This slide shows an overview of the outcomes of our analysis. On the left, you can find our criteria, which we defined earlier, and on the right, we made a separation of our study period in 3 blocks: before, during, and after Black Thursday. As our analysis already revealed, we have to separate the Black Thursday event from other times within the study period. Overall, most of our requirements were not able to meet our criteria on March 12th and 13th, while 4 of the 5 criteria were met before Black Thursday, and even all of the criteria could be fulfilled in the rest of the study period. A detailed discussion as well as a description of all our criteria can be found in the paper. Overall, we found Maker's liquidation system to be working well during most times. On 2 days within the study period, where much more liquidations took place compared to all other days, the liquidation system was not able to work properly, and only one of our criteria could be fulfilled. The reason why this is the case seems to be multifactorial, and it has been studied also by other authors. It seems to be the case that the targeted attack on Ethereum mempools is one reason, but a lack of DAO liquidity due to many auctions that took place in a very short amount of time were another reason. To solve the lack of liquidity of keepers, the Maker community initiated a complete redesign of Maker's auctioning mechanism, which has been launched in spring of this year. The new Dutch auction system, which uses reverse auctions, removes the necessity for keepers to lock DAI until the auction ends or a higher bid gets placed. With the new auction system, any keeper can buy as much collateral as wanted at any time during the auction. The collateral can thus be claimed in the same transaction, which allows the use of flash loans to buy collateral. However, also the Dutch auction system has some disadvantages, and it remains to be seen how the protocol handles a stress situation that is comparable to the Black Thursday incident. Thanks for your attention, and if you have any further questions regarding our analysis, feel free to contact me or my colleagues.